Hi everyone, Nashwalk Steve here again. So this is part 2 of a video where I'm trying to remove the differential lock from our 2004 Honda Foreman ES. We got the differential out in the last video, so if you're looking for how to do that, different video. This one, you can point the camera here, is how we're going to take apart the differential and remove the spool locker or differential locker that's in here. So first step was to get it all, take the bolts out, sorry. There were 6 12mm bolts and then 2 14mm bolts, and that's what we've got right now. I had some issues. If you watch the other video and taking this apart, the axle, CV axle, did not come out properly. It pulled apart in here instead, which is not what I wanted to happen. So now I've got some parts that I need to reassemble sequentially when I go back to put this thing in again. If possible, I'll try to get this off yet from the inside. Maybe I don't need to even remove it. I'm not sure yet, but I'm guessing I'll need to get that out. We'll take it apart and see what we find inside here. All right, I flipped it over and just give it a few taps on these ears here. We're gonna see what we get inside here as we pull it apart. I'm not wanting to just slide off, really. More taps here. There we have it. This is the inside there. The other side around, and we've got that, and I believe under there is where we'll find the differential lock. Bearing looks nice, so. All right, we'll take these out, and these I understand are put into the Loctite, so they're going to take a little force to get out. But I did buy some red Loctite for this purpose, so when we put it back together, we can lock those bolts back in place. So looks like 12mm bolts, so we'll go ahead and crack those off. Okay, so I was able to break these loose. It was kind of a challenge. I ended up using 2 ratchets at one time. I braced one on like the workbench and then use the other one to get the rest of them loose, because the thing just wants to spin every time you put any the torque on it. But that worked to get, you know, whatever, 5 out of the 6. The last one I had to kind of hold down here on this with a big channel lock, and I was able to loosen them up. So now we're gonna zip them out and see what's inside. I think we're gonna see all the clutch pieces inside, so I'll be really careful when I take it off. And as you see here, they were red Loctited in, so for good reason. You don't want any of these bolts moving around inside your differential. Okay. I think I'm gonna flip it over to take this apart. It's loose, so I don't lose any of the pieces that are hanging out in there. Let's see what we get when we do this. Yep, that's what I was hoping for. So here's what it looks like inside. All those pieces there are individual clutch pieces. I'm not sure what they're called and exactly how they work, but that's what those are. I don't want to mess those up, and I want to take special note of how I took this apart. So I see that there's 2 holes here, 2 holes here. It matches up with these 2 holes and those 2 holes. So we'll leave it like that, and then as I pull this apart, I think we get to the spool locker in here pretty quickly. I see it back there, so I'm gonna go ahead and work on that a little bit. Once I get it loose, I'll show how it all comes apart. Okay, so I was having a problem getting this piece off here, and I realized it's because this is the shaft, the axle, the end of the axle. It didn't come out when I tried to remove that CV axle. So now I'm gonna have to try to pound it out from the inside. It's still pretty tight in there, so I'm gonna take a hammer and this punch and try to find a way to get that thing knocked out of there. So then I can reassemble that CV axle like I want to, and then take this piece apart. I can even see in the little spring retainer clip, if you look right on top of it, back up a little bit, it's too close. You can see that retainer clip is around the outside of that. So we'll try to get that off by a little blunt force here, see what we get. All right, I was able to pound that out. So now I've got the axle out, so I can go ahead and reassemble that on the end of the CV shaft I've got over there. So with that out, this was much more easy to remove. So got that comes out, and then you can see the spool blocker right here. And underneath it are the washers that will stay there. Those are part of the OEM setup. So we'll get rid of this. And I think that's all there is to it for reinstating the slip differential. So I'm gonna take that out and put this thing back together how it was, and remembering to red Loctite all of those as well. We'll see how that goes. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do here is I decided to go ahead and use this RTV high temp gasket maker so we don't get any leaks, the differential oil coming through here. So we're gonna go ahead and apply this on. It says to put it on, put the surfaces together and hand tighten until it squeezes out a little bit on the sides, and then go ahead and after an hour torque it down completely. So we're gonna start by just applying it, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, I got that differential all sealed up again. Waited an hour, like it said, with that RTV gasket maker, and then went and tightened all these up. You see the gasket made a nice bead on the outside there, so we've got a good seal, I think. Next thing we're gonna do is wrestle this thing back into where it came from so we can start kind of the reassembly process. Something I wanna point out though, I had that problem with this whole CV cup coming apart when I was taking the axle off, and I came to realize, you know, earlier in the video I had to pound it out of the differential, this whole part of the end of the axle and the CV cup. And in doing that, I don't know if it happened while I was pounding it out or if this was the reason it was so hard, was that this retainer clip in here, this spring clip, I guess, was broken. So it came into two pieces when I put it on, when I hammered it out. So I went ahead and ordered these up. They're like 90 cents each. You can get them online if you find the part number off the diagram, but then you end up paying like $8 to $10 in shipping. So I just went to the Honda dealer. I called them up and asked them about the part. They don't have it in stock, but they can get it in about a week. So I can go pick it up and pay a whole, $2 or so for two of those clips. So when I put this back together, I'll have a spare just in case. So I'm gonna be able to do the reassembly here, everything except when it comes to putting this axle back in place. I'm gonna have to stop there and wait till I get my part. But for now, we'll go ahead and see if we can get that in the way that it came out. All right, wasn't really a problem to get it back in there. Went in pretty easy, just lifted up this top A-arm here. I was able to slide that thing right in there. As you see, it's not lined up yet. I have it slid forward. We're gonna go ahead to the other side and get that drive axle inserted right in there. I wiped it off clean. We're gonna put some fresh grease on there and get that thing in place next. That's on the other side where we removed the plastic side step. So we're gonna be working right in here. Here's the drive axle. Grease it up and put it back in there. And then you got this spring-loaded part here that you can slide forward and get over top of that. We'll grease that up too. My helper had decided to leave me, so I'm gonna do things and then show you how they went afterwards. All right, that went in pretty easily. Able to shove it up into there. Didn't take much force, and I think it's clipped in there. It looks like that little retainer spring there found its home. If I peel it back a little bit, you can see there's a ridge there, but it's in that ridge. Not deeply set, but I think it's where it's supposed to be. Can't push it in anymore, and I tried to pull it out, and it does definitely, it is catching on that retainer spring clip on the front because it kind of jerk out when it came out. Then back here you see you've got a little bit of play yet because the differential is pulled forward. So once you put the differential back, that will come back and seal on that rubber right there. So now we go back to the differential and start bolting that in and connecting the sensors again. We'll get back to doing that right now. Okay, a little update on the progress here. I got this sensor installed up here. Note when you put it back together that the sensor goes flat onto the differential and the little guard goes over top of it, just in case it's tempting to get that flipped around, but you'll notice it once you get it put together. You know, and then I got this sensor and the wire connected back under here, and then put this cover back on. These two little tabs on the top, these little 8mm bolts. Next thing we're gonna do is continue with the reassembly on this, I guess it'd be the right side here. Get that axle installed and then reinstall this part down here, the lower ball joint and the upper shock. So go ahead and do those next. I understand that this axle should just snap in. The snap ring should go in with a little bit of pressure and then seat itself inside of there. I'll put a little grease on it to make it easier to get in there and lock. We'll see how that goes. All right, that went in pretty easy. So I'm gonna kind of show what I did. I lifted up this brake here and got this shaft nice and straight going in, and was able to just kind of give it a little nudge going straight in like that. Give it a couple thumps and it just locked right in. So that looks pretty good. Now we can go ahead with the reassembly of everything. I guess the only things to note are, you put this back on down here, don't forget the cotter pin. So I'll do that now, and then we'll see where we're at from there. All right, the, I don't know what you want to call it, starboard or passenger side, right side if you're sitting on it, is reassembled in place. I added a new pin down there because the other one was pretty well trashed. So we're gonna go ahead and may as well put the tire back on while we're waiting. All right, so I finally got my little snap ring there that goes on to the end of the CV axle right there. Fits in that groove. So we're gonna go ahead and slip that in place. All right, getting the snap ring on was very simple. Just got one side on it and just pried the rest of it over. See, I put a little bit of grease on this CV axle shaft, and we're gonna go ahead and slide that in there, give it a little push so it seats, so that snap ring will seat, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, that slid right in there nice. It's a little click as it went into place, so I know that snap ring seated all right. Then I went ahead to the next step, put this castle nut back on this lower ball joint here. That went on just fine. Put the new pin through it. So that went on all right. I did notice that this stud here for this lower ball joint was spinning when I first got the nut on it, but just kind of kept turning it, and eventually it caught and was able to go on. So no problem there. That looks pretty good. And the next step will be to throw the nut back in, or the bolt back in here for the the shock here. Get that in place. So we'll do that right now. That's installed. Now I'll move on and put the tire on. All right, we got that tire zipped on. Next thing we're gonna do is just let it off the jack. All right, we're back on all four wheels on the ground. Last thing I wanna do is just double check this differential oil level. I filled it while it was up on a jack, so it may have been overfilled because of that, because the front was kind of tipped up. So I'm gonna pull that out here and see if oil will kind of spill out if it's overfilled, because it should just go to that level. It looks like we have a good amount of oil in there. I'll just make sure that it's up to the top, and next thing will be a test drive. All right, we're taking it for a little test drive, and on the pavement it's better. You can actually move it with one hand now, which is better than before. Backing up, going forward, you can turn easier than it was before. It doesn't want to grab you and force the steering wheel one direction or the other, force the bars one way or the other. So that seems to be a victory. We're gonna go ahead and take it up and down the road here and see how it all rides, make sure everything's put back together fine, but that's gonna be hopefully it for the project. Thanks for watching, hope you learned something, and comment if you have any questions. Thanks.